But something about myself first, because I don't work as a school psychologist anymore. I used to over 25 years altogether as a psychologist and 20 of them as a school psychologist. And now at the moment I work in a medical center called Mehiläinen, which is for all people in any kinds of problems, and I work there as an occupational therapist. But as a side work, I still do testing for learning disabilities for children in schools in Oulu and in health care centers. So I'm still into that work as well. And as an interesting detail, I used to live in Luxembourg, which is probably familiar to you guys. And I lived there for 5 years. So France is quite familiar to me, even I don't speak any French.
If you've been living in Luxembourg, you should be speaking French.
I know, I can go to Auchan and buy baking powder in French, but I don't speak any. I really learned how to go through everyday life things there, but it was really hard because I didn't speak any French. But the France came quite familiar to me because I have 2 boys and 1 girl, and 2 of my boys, they played ice hockey in Luxembourg. And as you know, that Luxembourg is so tiny little country, and there's only 1 team, so we had to find some teams to play against, and that was in France. And I heard that you come from Dijon, and we played the eastern part of France, so I've been in Dijon many times in the ice hockey rink, so that part is very familiar to me. So it's nice to have you here.
Du hockey sur glace?
Yeah.
Il y a une équipe de hockey sur glace?
Do you all know that what ice hockey is?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very tiny little sport in France, I think. But actually, you have very good teams in Reims, and they are very good quality teams.
Reims.
Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce it.
This is it. You mean R-E-I-M-S?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So as you see, I don't speak any French.
No, it's great.
Yeah.
There's another town called Rennes and Reims.
Yeah.
So it was.
Yeah, exactly. But it's very nice to have you here, especially for that reason that I used to live so close to France. And in time in Luxembourg, we went there with my family because of my husband's work. But then I started to work there as well, and I had a private practice there, and I worked with all kinds of problems and people. But also I worked in schools, in European schools of Luxembourg and in Brussels as well. So that was a very, very nice time. Okay, and this is the official definition what school psychologists do in Finland, and I'm not going to read it because you can read it from there. But basically what I think that it's a quite wide range of things we have to know. It's educational, developmental, clinical, community psychology. And I think that the most important part of school psychologist work is to be a part of the community we work. In Oulu, we have about 200,000 inhabitants, and we have approximately 35 to 40 school psychologists here. Actually, or we should have, because now there is a big problem to have people to work as a psychologist, and we lack of them a lot. So it's a lot of work on the field of psychology. Is it? Really?
Definitely.
Wow. How do you know why is that in France? Don't you educate them enough, or what is the reason, or isn't?
It's a question for Sabine. And Nathalie también. Yes.
I think it's the same thing in here.
Yes.
Yeah. It's mixture of reasons.
Pourquoi il manque des psychologues scolaires
Il n'y a plus de recrutement, tout simplement.
Pardon?
Il n'y a plus de recrutement. We need psychologists. We have psychologists, but the government say we don't employ
Yeah.
More persons.
Okay. Yeah. So there is a lack
We
of
have
them.
100 places.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah. Okay, and because here we have a lot of open positions, but no, we don't have enough people to work in them, and that is the problem. Yeah.
But there are some regions. There are some regions in some parts of France. I mean, in far west, in Saône-et-Loire, for example, where we can't find psychologists because they don't want to go there in France.
Okay.
In some departments either. Perhaps in Dijon, which is a big town, it's easier. But
Maybe they're not paid enough.
yeah, but
They earn lots of money if they are private.
Yeah. Well, actually, I can tell you because I used to work as in a public area, like in schools of Oulu. And now I work in private sector, and it's much more well paid, unfortunately. And even though I loved to work as a school psychologist, but and I used to work with Mari. That was well, when I worked last of my 5 to 6 years was in the same school. I guess you are going to Talvikangas in this week, so you'll see that school. And
No, we are actually not going to my school. No.
oh, you are not.
No.
Okay. No, anyways, so one of these schools in Oulu. So one psychologist usually has around 1,000 students per worker. So it means it depends on the size of the school, but I used to have 4 to 3 schools, depending on the year, that I had to travel between them and work in each school. And one part of is this, well, I can actually show the next. Yeah, it's, I could share the work of school psychologists to individual work, one-to-one work, and collaborative work, which is more like a communal work, where I work as a team and as we have in every school we have a welfare, what is the word? Student welfare team, which is to plan that how people are doing well in school area and how to improve well-being in schools. So that one part of the work we do, and actually that communal work is in a very big role in Finland. And if I may say so, my personal opinion is that it should be in individual work, and that was one of the reasons I changed to the private sector, because I think that one of the most important things that school psychologists should do is assessment. That is the way how we can really find tools and help children to cope with learning disabilities or neuropsychological symptoms as ADHD, which is very, very common nowadays in Finland.
And that is exactly what we need as a teacher. We need the test results because we cannot do them ourselves.
Yeah.
That's what we need. We don't need the welfare of the whole school because we can do that ourselves, but we cannot do that.
Yeah, and that is the only thing that's only person who can do it is a school psychologist, is the test part, and I think that's one of the things which is very important. I don't know how is it in France. Your psychologists, do they do a lot of testing, or is more like this communal-based work?
Maybe it's different in the elementary school and in the secondary school.
Yeah.
The psychologists in the elementary schools, they do a lot of testing.
Okay.
More than us. We are in the second degree.
Okay.
And we do less tests.
Yeah.
Normally pupils
The tests are already made.
Yeah.
In the
Yes,
lower
that's
grades.
So by the way, I forgot to ask, are you all teachers, or is there any...
Look, we have these lovely colors. We have 2 psychologists here. The
Wow.
Purple.
violet ones, and then we have blue ones are teachers,
Okay.
and the green ones were instructors.
Okay.
No,
trainers or teachers.
Yeah.
and then what have we? Green
Green.
Green are the
Green
trainers. Trainers.
The orange.
Yeah.
Then we have
Et les bleus, les greens, ils sont bleus.
two of the others.
Yeah, okay. Good to
They
know.
are teacher trainer
Yeah.
and Pierre-Jean it does everything else.
Boss.
Everything that remains
Yeah.
after that.
Okay, but that's good to know. It's so very nice to know that I have some colleagues here, because I didn't know that in advance.
And there is someone who is working for the House of Handicap, and it's important because she is here. Because in many times psychology tests are asked for the House of Handicap. They want the test to know if the pupil can go to this school or this school, and
The
they
cognitive
study
level.
different documents, medical and psychologists in the House of Handicap, and Gail is working there.
Yeah, yeah.
In France, it's so binary. If you are handicapped or you're not handicapped, you have a possibility to have helpers, or to have a special orientation, or to have helps by personal
Yeah.
tools.
Well, in Finland we have a very, well, how would I say, we can of course we can make the decision. Actually, as a psychologist, I cannot do. I can only have a test results, and if I think that the cognitive level is very, very low, I have to put the student forward to more evaluation to hospital and the doctor who can evaluate that. Okay, if there is a handicapped, indeed mildly or severe or something like that, and then they have their own path and own schools, and they have a very special teaching. But now if there is mild how would I say, what is the word, like the cognitive level is a little low, but they can still survive in normal school, because integration is a very strong thing in Finland. So we have to help the students inside the classroom, and the test results tell that if they can go to the goals that they are expected to, and we can give them like their own goals, individual goals that they are try to achieve.
And what is the proportion? What is the proportion of pupils who have an own orientation without the others?
I'm not quite sure what you mean.
The proportion of pupils don't be able to be with the others.
Well, we have special schools for them in Finland, but
the
it's,
proportion of
The rate.
the rates.
I don't know. I cannot really, because we do IQ testing, and there is a certain number of IQ that it has to be, but it's not only the testing, because if it goes to that, it's a team who evaluates that. If it's really, I
It's
mean,
always a doctor who gives the
always.
diagnosis of a mental
Yeah.
handicacy, for example.
yeah, it's never psychologists. Yeah, it has to be the team, and it's a longer process, and very often I think it's quite rarely happens that somebody comes into the normal school, and in the school years, early school years, we notice that, well, this person is really handicapped, because usually they are catched up earlier than that. Sometimes it happens, and the cognitive level might be very low, but still.
It's very rare.
It's very
because
rare.
Our early childhood
Preschool system
is
and
very good
daycare. Yeah,
system too.
yeah.
And they will notice.
Do the parents choose, or is it
Compulsory. Compulsory.
compulsory? Ça veut dire quoi?
Obligatoire.
Oui. Or is it compulsory to go in special school?
Well, but the parents can always decide. It has to be very, very strong things that go over the parents' decisions. But usually parents are very well cooperative in that case.
But sometimes
they
they
are
really want their child to go to a normal school.
Yeah.
But it's if we understand that it's not good for the child, then we will do everything we can to persuade them.
Exactly. Yeah, and very often that is the testing is very important part, because when they see the profile of the child, it's very visible, because I always show the profile to the parent without the IQ numbers, but as they see that I don't know how you guys do it in France, but it's very visible, and it's easy to see that, well, my child is really has problems with all kinds of things, and it makes it easier to
and I already
make
told
the
them that
decision.
you are very good at explaining these things to parents. So it's not just the numbers, but you explain what is demanded of the child to possibility to cope in a normal school.
Yeah, exactly. Because
But in the end, they decide, and if they decide to leave the child in normal school, they leave it in normal school without any help.
Well,
Is it possible?
we have to give them help, of course, but we will not have enough resources, perhaps, to help them in a
enough.
proper way. So it will take some time. Well, we have had some children together.
Yeah,
so,
we've done a lot of.
and sometimes the parents can be very persuasive. Like, I want my child to go to this normal school, and by the end of the first year, they will understand that, okay, my child needs more support, and it's not right for the child to make him or her to stay there if there is not enough resources like people to help, and equipment and environment, and really the equipment that they need.
Maybe it's more easy in a big town to go to a special school, because when you live I don't know.
Small town.
Yeah.
Family.
But if the child needs to go to a special school, then the community will pay.
Even the
Even if
taxi
they need
rides.
to go to another city.
Yeah, they do. And I don't know if you have already talked about these steps what we have for support.
Not in a proper way. I will show them later.
Yeah. So Mari will tell you how do we help the student with the learning disabilities or some other difficulties. We have a certain kind of
We have
steps.
a 3-step system that you have common support, or you have intensified support, or you have special support. And they all, the steps, they have different things.
Can you repeat, please?
I will tell you everything.
You will learn that.
And which tests do you use for the test?
Well, I use like a Wechsler intelligent test, which is common used. Yes, WISC, and then NEPSU, which is not probably familiar for you. Is it neuropsychological testing? NEPSU. Do you use it? Okay, great.
We're going to use it.
Yeah, that's a very good pattern. Yeah, because I think the WISC is the basic thing you do. Yeah, and NEPSU. Yeah, and it's WISC 4 and NEPSU 2. It's because it's 2. No, that's 4 and this 2 is 2.
It's 5. WISC 5.
5.
Yeah, sorry.
5.
Yeah, and that's 2. Yeah, but those are the tests, the basic test I use, and sometimes if there is dyslexia things, I might have some Finnish tests. But that's the basic pattern I always do. Yeah. Sorry. And there's always, and I guess it's the same thing in France, that you have to have permission from parents or guardians to make the test.
Ice swimming.
I don't know why this isn't opening for me.
Winter swimming.
Wednesday. Okay.
You will experience the real one.
Now this isn't obeying me, my orders.
Comment? Joo, mutta ei se, mä ajattelen, että ei se mitään semmoinen tullut.
Well, it doesn't matter because I didn't have many anything. I don't even remember what did I have to show you, but it doesn't obey me at all anymore.
Both of us, we didn't take Jari's lesson on ICT. So.
This technical part is the worst thing in my job. But you can have a nice view of the rest of the show. But yeah, but anything you want to ask more now that because and if I think about the work in Finland as a school psychologist, what has increased is neuropsychological problems like ADHD, ADD. Symptoms are very, very popular, and I think it's because of we have very much open environments in schools. That's one of the reasons, and I think the speed of society overall has increased ADHD symptoms, but of course there is always real ones as well. But that this is the same thing I noticed when I work in adults as well. But and also the individual work, because now it's elementary school and then the secondary school, and secondary school students very often they're very stressed and they need support, and they would just want to have talks and find tools to get over the stress factors.
And nowadays, as you told that neuropsychiatric diagnoses have increased, I can see the difference between 10 years ago and now. I'm having these children who have both ADHD and Asperger's. They have the both diagnoses, and that is a interesting thing.
Absolutely. I don't know. Have you noticed the same in your schools? Because that's very popular here. And the kids they get medication quite often, and it's.
Donc c'est TDAH pour nous.
C'est en évolution, c'est vrai. C'est les diagnostics, je pense, qui se font de plus en plus.
In English, please.
The diagnosis of TDAH is increasing. Yes, actually, I think it's consequence also of the COVID. Yes. Not for the TDAH, but the
demands of society, like
mental disease,
is going so
But
fast.
I'm not quite sure there is such a link between Asperger and TDAH in France. Do you think so? I'm not so sure.
No, I don't
Not
think
in
so.
France.
No, I think with Asperger's we have learned to recognize it more, and I think that is one of the reasons.
Definitely.
And when we talk about neuropsychological symptoms, it's very often that the child might have one of as a basic symptom as ADHD, for example, and there might be some symptoms of Asperger's or Tourette's or dyslexia or something like that.
But they usually they have just one diagnosis, but they can also have symptoms of another.
Yeah,
and that's typical. Have you noticed, since you are working with adults now, have you noticed that there are more adults getting the ADHD diagnosis?
Yeah, in every week I have several of them. I have to do the same kind of work what I do with children as well.
Do you think it's because of social environment? Just like alcoholics?
I think it's one of the reasons is exactly that, and also it's very popular. People has recognized it more often, but it's very hard to distinguish that what is based on stress factors, because you can actually have a very similar kind of symptoms, and what is actually ADHD, because that is a chemical thing in your brain, and that's that part of diagnosis is also the one who has to be made by the doctor. And
treatment like methylphenidate or something like that.
Yeah, and I always do the pre-diagnostic things like testing with adults as well. The same thing actually what I do with children, but with children I always check the cognitive level as well. And we have actually now when we talk about these neuropsychological things, we have a very good rehabilitation system in Oulu, and actually it is in some other cities also in Finland, is that we have a rehabilitation system which is family thing, that the children goes there and they try to learn some skills how to control their feelings or impulsivity and things like that, and parents are given some information about ADHD or whatever neuropsychological thing that is, and it's it's a family rehabilitation, and it's called Laku. Mari has probably students in that, and I also used to work in the same project. So that is something which is, I think, more important than the medication, because the medication is sometimes given very easily.
This is short for rehabilitation of the children.
Yeah, yeah.
Lastenkunto.
Yeah, and that's very effective, and they have in that system they also have weekends that all the families they gather together, and parents they get tips from each other that how do we survive
they
at
get to
home
meet
with this
parents
problem.
who are in the same situation with their own child.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you think about the medication for ADHD?
I think that sometimes it helps a lot, and it's indeed really needed, but it's very visible if it helps or not, and that's why it always it's seen immediately. So
a child who hasn't taken the medication, you can see straight away.
But apparently more and more we can hear that there is addiction afterwards. If young children have methylphenidate, for example, when they grow older, they have more chances to have addiction to drugs.
Yeah, that's
is it something that is proved in Finland too?
It's a chemical thing.
Yeah,
it
definitely.
Yeah. And that's why it's very important to treat ADHD if that is a real chemical thing and it's really neuropsychological thing, their background, because if not, the people with ADHD, they are very easily addicted to drugs or games
in my opinion, in my experience, the drug helps. It really does. The medication helps. It gives the child a chance to stay in concentrate, and they get the inner peace into their body and into their mind. But it's never just the medication. You always need some behavioral therapy as well, or very good.
The first time is that, and then you have medication.
Sorry?
The first time is educational therapy and behavior, and then medication in the second time.
In your country, or
it's the conference of the OMS. L'Organisation mondiale de la santé, SAID, je sais pas comment on dit.
Yes, WHO. C'est per WHO, I think.
World Health Association.
They give
the good practice
is first give the behavioral therapy and then medication. Yeah, I think children who come to school, and if they already have been with their parents for 6 years and they have been jumping all over the place and nothing has helped, it's impossible for them to concentrate at school and learn something. It's easier when they don't have to learn certain things. They can just play and be quite free. But when they need to concentrate and start learning something, it's easier when they really can stay in peace and start to learn. But, well, there are many, of course there are also parents who are against and medicine. But usually when they when they start testing like with small doses, they get to see that it's all easier for the child as well, not just for them, but of course for the child, and we always have to think about the child first.
And I think that even it might be ADHD, ADD, or some other learning disabilities that if we don't recognize them early enough, it becomes a behavior problem or some self-esteem problem, and that's why I think that it is very important that we use a lot of resources in the early ages of the school, and I think that the point of view should be there when I work as a school psychologist, that first grades are really important. Of course, they can achieve help also in the secondary school and etc. But from child point of view, it's much more effective. And now when I work with adults, it has been interesting that they've told that they have hoped that these things would have been recognized earlier in the ages that they have struggled throughout the school. No matter if it's a dyslexia or some other learning disability thing or the ADHD, but the thing that we should recognize them, that what is it about that this kid cannot learn or cannot stay on his chair or whatever it is. But I think early recognition is the key thing.
And school psychologists can work with children who have less than 6 years old?
Yes, we can. But let's say that we can, but there's no time to do it in practice.
I think the pre-primary year is the first opportunity, because the child are 6 years old and they will be going to school next year, and you get to evaluate many times of the situation. Is the child ready to go to school?
Exactly.
Or should we leave them to kindergarten for just another year?
Because then that's obligatory that if the child, is there any suspicions that if the child is good enough to go to school, if he's able to go to school, we have to do a psychological testing, and that is always during the springtime one big part of my work.
And that is usually the time when parents sometimes are very much against the idea that, okay, why should we leave this child still in the kindergarten, because they really want to put them in school at the same time that everybody else is going. And sometimes we can see that it would be so much more beneficial for the child to stay in kindergarten and to be able to play and grow a bit.
Maturity.
But if the parents decide that this one is going to school, then they come, and we have to start helping them there.
At what age your children when they do go to school?
3 years.
Oh, it's 3 years.
Oh my Lord.
How do you think of that? Is it good or bad system? What do you think of it?
It's a school, but it's a special school for people between 3 to 6. And
is it more like a play school?
Yes. It's more like play school than school.
Play school.
Yes, it's preschool.
Is it compulsory?
Sorry?
Is it obligatory? Okay.
Ça fait pas longtemps.
From 2 to 3.
That it's compulsory 4 or 5 years old, 3 years.
No, it's 2 now. It's 2 years old.
There has been some talk that maybe we should lower
J'ai dit que ça faisait pas longtemps qu'ils doivent aller à l'école quand ils ont 3 ans.
2 years.
Obligatoire à 2 ans,
mais
à 3 ans, il y a 2 ans, C'est ça, il y a depuis 2 ans, c'est obligatoire qu'on va à l'école à partir de 3 ans. Quand l'enfant a 3 ans, pas quand l'enfant a 2 ans.
Avant c'était 6 ans.
Avant c'était 6
Avant c'était 6 ans. Putain, tu m'as fait peur.
La maternelle, il y allait.
For 2 years.
So you don't know what happens.
Don't agree together.
School is
For 2 years, they need to go to school at 3 years old.
Mais on a ouvert aux 2 ans. Ouais, non, c'est pas obligatoire.
children who are 2 years old can be in school, but it's not
Compulsory.
Yeah, so
At
they
3,
have to go to school at the age of 3.
At 3.
Yeah, okay.
and it is since 2 years. Before it was 6 years old,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
we were lost between 2, 3,
Yeah.
6.
And we have to stop. Like, you can't stop before 16. And this is 18 for you now. We understand.
Yeah,
And now
it
in the
just
law you
changed.
have to.
There is a
Obligation.
new law.
Vas-y en anglais.
It is now compulsory to have a formation
Professional formation.
till
Yeah, okay.
18 years old.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
A bit like that.
Before it was 16 years old and now 18.
T'as obligation de formation.
Yeah, it's compulsory to have to learn something in classic schools or in apprenticeship.
Yeah.
So, but it's compulsory to learn something to have a formation.
Yeah.
Because there has been some talk that maybe we should lower the time when children go to school, for example, to 5 years or something.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I hope it doesn't go through, because when I see the children who come to school now, who are 6 or 7, and sometimes they are not ready yet.
No.
I think so, because I think children need to stay and be able to be children.
And especially the boys who have born in the late year, like December, November, and because the cutting point in Finland is if you well, how does it count? If you turn out 7
the year that you turn 7,
you have to go to school. And now if you are born, if you turn out 7 like December, so they and the next body can be 7 in January, so it's actually a year gap.
But you say they are not ready for what? What's the difference actually between being in, don't know how you call them, preschool or primary school? What's the difference?
Primary school is for, is it like 3 hours a day or 2.5 hours a day?
I think it's 3 hours at least.
3 hours.
Three,
Yes,
yeah.
and they don't have to be able to stay at one place for maybe half an hour or 1 hour in that 3 hour time. And when they come to school, they have to be there like 4 hours. You have a 15-minute break after every hour, and it's a big jump from pre-primary to.
And they get tired, and we have this open environment in many schools, and it's too much to handle.
And if we look at the results of our PISA, for example, PISA examinations, that we manage pretty good. So,
as a psychologist, I think this is my last sentence, and I have to finish. But I think that they need to have time to play. That's the way they actually mature their cognitive skills as well. Because if they go to school too early and there are too big demands and they get tired, they don't learn anything. I mean, we have the saying that the playing is the children's task, and I think that's very wise thing.
We can't say that when they are in preschool, They are not learning, but they are learning in a different way. So.
Yes, they are learning through play more, and they have time to play. They spend these 3 hours.
This is a question for
little tasks, and it's very small things what they do, and they learn letters and they learn numbers and things like that a little bit. But still, it's only 3 hours, and it's not in the row, and they are very in small groups. Let's say with 5 children.
Smaller groups.
Yes, very much smaller groups than in the school.
Okay.
So that's the big difference.
How many people? How many do you call them pupils?
Yes. No, actually it's children in preschool.
It's children and pupils only when they are 6 or 7.
When they go to school.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but if they are in preschool, they are children, and in a group it might be, let's say, 20 to 25 children. But when they are in preschool moments, I would say, in the lessons, it's only like 5. They share, they split the group in smaller groups, and that's the big difference if I compare that to school system.
Is the splitted group managed by a single teacher or?
Yes, usually it is. There might be 3 of them, but because of course they are usually 2 teachers per group, and then there might be some nurses, so they have to organize that who takes which group, but they do it in the small groups, and that's what I was telling, that's the big difference in preschool, that they do it smaller groups than in the schools.
Much smaller groups.
Yeah,
but more adults. Much more adults?
More adults,
more
yes.
adults and smaller groups.
Yeah.
So when the children start first grade, in my school nowadays it's maybe 23 to 25 students and 1 teacher. And when they are in daycare, it's or pre-primary, it's maybe, I don't know how many.
It's 20 to 25, I think, but in a smaller groups it's only 5 to something like that, 5 to 4 child per group when they do the task things. But when they play and are all together, it's a big group. But they don't need to concentrate. They don't have to focus, of course, when they play. But when they are in the school kind of environment, then they are smaller groups.
If they are not doing the academic things, they are still learning. Of course, when they are playing, they are learning. They are learning how to cope with other children and how to act in a group and so on.
When we hear you, we think that everything is a bit decided for the orientation. Do you understand orientation? Especially in orientation for pupils when they are in pre-primary schools. Is it the case or not? Everything is decided when they are 6 or 7? What they're going to do or not?
Yes.
This is before 7 that all the tests are done?
Not necessarily. No. It's if the teacher in preschool, if she or he thinks that, well, now we have a problem with this child, that he's not mature enough, or there's some other problems, he suggests that well, we should take a test, and the parents, they decide. If they don't want to have the test, we don't do it. It's always based on a permission of the parents.
Okay.
And if the child comes to school without testing, and even if there has been worries, we try to start the process again in school, and we can do the testing there.
And eventually the tests will be made.
Yes, usually it is so, but sometimes it's a long process.
Yes.
Okay.
But I have to finish because you know what? I'm going to the ice hockey match today.
We need to win. Make sure we win because
absolutely.
we are otherwise
so
we are
down.
I have a lift coming in 10 minutes. So, but it was really nice to be here, and I'm happy to meet some people from Dijon, especially.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope that you enjoy your time here. Yeah.